This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
Dreamcast Junkyard Dreampod, episode 66. I am still your stand-in host, Kev. Today I am joined down in sunny Bristol by Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Kev.
And we are also joined by Lewis, who's becoming a regular now. Hello, Lewis.
Hello.
And then we have a very special guest with us today. I wished I had clarified the pronunciation of his surname before we started, but I did explain I was stand-in, and it is Andrew Dickenson. Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Mike kept correcting me on the previous podcast because I was always adding an R into it, but there we go. Like I said, professional hosts would have that off air. It came to me as we're going. So how are we all? We all well?
Yeah.
It's been some time since we've met.
Yes.
So what we're going to do is, based on fan feedback, we're going to kind of go round the table. We're going to start with Lewis because we're going to go geographically, north to south, best part of the country to worst part of the country.
Hey.
Just kidding. Lewis, what have you been up to since you were last on the show? Specifically Dreamcast first, but anything else you want to throw in here as well?
One thing Dreamcast pickups to start. I bought Ooga Booga, and the first thing that happened when I opened it was I found an advert for Floygan Brothers, which was fantastic. So I was thinking, the world just wants me to buy this game. So yeah, I got that. I also purchased is it the OSSC, the upscaler? I bought one of those, and after a few sort of teething problems, I got all my games looking a lot nicer now. I don't know the sort of general consensus on that device amongst the Dreamcast community, but I've got my Dreamcast running through VGA on it, and it looks very nice, so I'm very happy with it.
Ah, that's interesting. Just if we throw in there, how Mike and Andrew, how do you guys have your Dreamcast in particular connected? I don't think we've ever spoken about this.
No. Well, I have a CF modded Dreamcast and a normal PAL Dreamcast connected by VGA cable to a monitor, and I've also got an American, Japanese, and a PAL Dreamcast all set up via VGA to another monitor.
Interesting. What about you, Andrew?
At the moment, I've got I can't remember what the mod is. I think it's just a region mod and a battery modded Dreamcast, and it's just hooked up with is it Bear Bros? Gecko?
I never know how you pronounce
Bahara Bros or something.
Bahara Bros, something, yeah. But it's their Gecko one. So I've got it hooked up with that. I do have some kind of pass-through as well about I was using for capturing. I can't remember what it is. I found it on Amazon. It seems to work okay, but yeah, that's how I've got it hooked up.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes, I've probably got the most peasant-like connection. I'm just using the RF lead that came with my Dreamcast. No, I'm not really. I'm just using
gangster.
Yeah, just using a standard VGA to a HDMI converter. But no, it's quite interesting that we've got a kind of range of connection methods there, because it's become a kind of. I feel like people like the one that I can never remember where the O and the S and the C's go.
Yeah, I've been telling people I bought this new thing called this, and I've been saying it wrong.
And then they've been like, time.
What is it called again? And I was like, it's this, and they're like, well, it's not coming up on Google. So yeah,
open source
scanline
something
converter. Yeah.
Right.
I got it because I was doing some research, and there's all these different cables you can get for individual systems, and I think just cost wise it worked out better to actually just get this sort of one that will take all of these different devices, as opposed to having specific cables for specific systems are probably. I'm really self-conscious that like some dudes listening to this and being like, this guy, he's such an amateur. What is he talking about?
There'll always be one left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to be my first rant of the day. The amount of people who are to tell other people how to run their Dreamcasts. If the Dreamcast runs, there's a picture on the screen. It plays a game. You are running the Dreamcast correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's 16 by 9.
Unless it's 16 by 9.
Yeah.
Don't mention that to Ross.
Yeah. But no, that's interesting. That's I feel like there's. I'd like to have mine kind of like as guerrilla as possible, just so the behind my TV, because I like to have as many consoles as possible set up. Behind there is like a hellscape that I don't like to look at. So I like to have. I've got like a few different switches, and I've got switches into switches. As long as it all works when you hit a button and you maybe have to press a little button. I don't care about like full optimization, or I'm not going for speed records, so I'm not interested if there's like a millisecond of lag or whatever the terminology of that is.
But I think that being said, I think me and Kev were at the Play Blackpool last year, and we had the DC HDMI running on the stand, and it was a really, really good picture. So I think although I've literally just gone against what I've said a minute ago, but DC HDMI does seem to be the way of getting it to run it the best quality. I don't know if you think the same, Kev, but I know we were both quite impressed with it.
Yeah, that was impressive. What sort of monitor have you got that going into, Lewis?
It's just a was it a Sony HD TV. The problem was I had everything running through was it AV SCART, and it just looked awful. Like absolutely, like honestly, it made me not want to play some of my games. I know people say, it's not about the way it looks, but it like I don't know. There's something really nice about when you play something like the SNES. Like the graphics are just really nice on that machine, and it just took out all of the niceness away from them. And I'd have to show you for you to, but it looks so washed out and horrible. I remember trying to play Grandia 2, and I'm like, this does not look good, because that's a nice looking game as well. So yeah, this thing has really changed everything.
Excellent. And you mentioned, before we move on to either some of your other stuff, you mentioned Ooga Booga there. Have you played that online yet?
No, I have not. But I do love party games, and this is one of the ones that people kind of seem sort of like a muttering amongst the community, like this is one of the good party games on the system.
What about the other guys? Have you played that before, either of you two, Mike or Andrew?
No, I can't say I've played it. I've seen it. I've just it didn't come out in the UK. Is that right?
That's right.
It's an American one.
It's an American one. So yeah, I never. It's one of the ones I didn't import. Probably because by the time it came out, it was kind of the dying days of online. And I don't think I imported anything back at the time. And obviously, since then, it's only fairly recently you've been able to go back online with stuff. And I haven't got into that yet. As much as I'd love to get a Dream Pie, it's not been possible yet. So maybe one day.
Yeah. I've got what is Tom's old copy of that, which I'm sure I've mentioned before. I've never even got around to playing it yet, even though I do have the Dream Pie. So I think anyone like Andrew is off the hook in that regards.
It's a good game. I've played it online on Dream Pie. I think I probably lost James Harvey, because James Harvey beats me at everything online. But yeah, it's really good. Really good.
Brilliant. So let's Mike, if we kind of go in a different order, Dreamcast wise, what have you been up to?
So I have, as regular listeners will know, I am on the quest to complete my Dreamcast collection worldwide. I have bought Cleopatra Fortune, which is one of the most expensive games on the Dreamcast, and Eldorado Gate, not Eldorado, sorry, Grauen no Tarakayo Capital Volume 6, which is the rarest game on Dreamcast. So I've now only got 3 games to go for the full worldwide set.
That's pretty incredible. I tip my hat to you. Wow, yeah, 3 copies. Do we have anyone with a full set in our kind of Facebook groups or on Twitter?
Adam Kowalik has a full set.
Right.
Probably has 2, probably. I think possibly one of the Dutch guys, is it Womble, is it, I think he might have a full set as well. Right. And I think Mike Mayu, also has a full set, if I remember rightly. There's not many, I don't think. Mainly because of the Grauen no Tarakayo Capital games, because they're an absolute nightmare to get hold of. I was really lucky. The volume 6, which is, like I said, the rarest one to get hold of, really expensive. Ross found one on a Japanese auction site. He could have charged me, the price it goes for. He didn't. He charged me the price he paid for it, which was really, really good. It was a really good bargain. So it's those ones are the hardest ones to get hold of because there wasn't many sold, obviously, at the time.
Right.
It's because they were online only, and it wasn't the greatest game in the world. There is literally very, very few of them out there. So it is really difficult to get hold of.
So for those of us who've not got your collector's guide to hand, what does that game entail?
I have no idea, and no one else does because it doesn't run.
Right. Okay. Brilliant.
It's literally useless. It's literally. So the only ones I've got left are 3 of those volumes. I've got volume 3, volume 4, and volume 5 of that series.
Right.
They are literally useless.
Tracking that down there,
Mike. you do realise after you've completed this collection, you're going to be the one person in the UK who probably owns the most visual novels ever. You do know this.
Possible. I don't know. Since I've been on Twitter, I do a sort of a side Twitter account with some Dreamcast pictures, and some of the people who've contacted me have got some really quite impressive and quite scary collections. I think one thing everybody who calls themselves a collector needs to realise is that no matter how good you think your collection is or how big your collection is, there is going to be someone out there with a much bigger one.
And on that note, we're going to throw to Andrew.
Don't edit that.
Yeah, I won't do. Andrew, we'll probably get a bit more of an introduction from you and your Dreamcast history as we go through the show. But in terms of anything that you've been playing Dreamcast-wise, and if not, feel free to expand into other consoles.
Sure. I think I've been playing bits of Dreamcast, obviously, for the book. I think the most recent one is Crazy Taxi, which I've just kind of got so back into. It's just an amazing game, and I can't believe how well it holds up. Never mind on modern consoles where it's, upscaled to HD, but even on the Dreamcast, it looks absolutely amazing. So I've been playing that. And in terms of buying stuff, I think the latest game that I bought was Toy Commander, which is oddly a game that I never had when the Dreamcast came out, and I feel like I should probably be slapped on the wrist for that because it's like such a big Dreamcast game and a launch title as well, and I never owned it at the time, so I've rectified that wrong, and I now own that game. So
yeah, I'm going to leap to your defense on that. Kind of in our kind of private group, we were talking about like a little summer assignment project because we've been a bit quiet, where people would name a game that a famous Dreamcast game that they've just never played or they've never really played a lot of. And I originally said Sonic Adventure, but I've never played Toy Commander. I didn't play it at the time, and I've still not played it, even though I've owned it for years since. So
it seemed. I don't know if this is just a weird coincidence, but people who I've met who kind of like played the Dreamcast when it was out but didn't properly own one, or they had a friend, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really into the Dreamcast. They're like, oh, Toy Commander, that was an awesome game. And I'm like, I've never played it either. I've never actually managed to get hold of it, and it just seems like everyone seems to know that and love this game. So I don't know.
Let's see if we got a clean sweep here. Mike, have you played it?
Yes.
Yes. See, I like to ask Mike if he's played games because he's played every game when he wrote his guide.
It's a good game. It's a good game.
It's Toy Racer that's got an online version, yeah. So
the game, we renamed Toy Racer as James Harvey because again, every single time you play against James Harvey, who's a member of the Dreamcast Junkyard, if no one knows who he is, he literally destroys everybody. To be fair to him, he's a real life racing driver, so I think he has some kind of touch.
Ooh, interesting. We say this every time we're on, but we still need to sort out a games night for staff and fans, patrons, for whatnot. Right, so kind of thrown Andrew on the spot there, but in terms of other consoles, Andrew, is there anything else that you want to talk about that you've been playing, or?
The big thing, I mean, the thing that I've been playing most is the Switch, which is just a great console. I only bought one fairly recently this year. I kind of waited a while to see how it was going to go, and it's yeah, it's probably the best modern console I've played, and the biggest game that I've been playing at the moment is Fire Emblem Three Houses, which I think everybody online seems to be going crazy for, and I can see why. It's amazing. I've kind of put the most hours into that I have for any game recently, because you know how it is, life gets in the way. You can't, you know, you've got work, you can't play that much in terms of games, but because it's on the Switch and I can play it, you know, away from the TV, I think I've put a good 20 hours into it already, which is unheard of for me. Past the age of 18, I haven't put that much time into a game for a long time. So yeah, that's what I've been playing.
No, and for those who aren't aware of maybe Andrew's other kind of passions or commitments, you're a member of the Switch Island. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, only recently. So I'm a member of I'm kind of like a patron of theirs, and I have been for some time. So I've been on their podcast and things like that. But yeah, fairly recently, I've joined as an actual member of the team. So yeah, it's really exciting, and it's a really good group of people. If you're interested in the Switch Island is a good place to kind of get that fix, I suppose.
I feel like the Switch is and I know, Mike, you've just picked one up recently again, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's one of the consoles that I think a lot of Sega people are quite happy for us to talk about or post about, or people will talk about in the group, and it kind of gets ignored because there's quite a strong kind of, well, not strong, but by modern console styles, a couple of ex-Dreamcast games, a couple of games that are very similar to Dreamcast feeling, very similar. To me, I've kind of graduated to loving the Switch the way Andrew does from my PS Vita, for those reasons that Andrew mentioned of like, yep. I'm currently sat in a room surrounded by hundreds of games that I feel like I never get the chance to play. But if I've got my my Switch, for example, like if you've got 5 minutes while you're downstairs tidying up and you just get that up, or making a cup of tea, or waiting on my little girl to finally go to sleep and stop screaming. There we go. It's perfect for those kind of life moments.
Can I add, for all the Switch owners out there, they've just released a demo on the store for Dragon Quest XI, the Switch version. And that's what I've been playing recently on the PS4, and I absolutely adore it. If any of you like Skies of Arcadia, that is an awesome RPG, and you'll sink hours into it. And they've just released it on the Switch, a demo. And apparently the demo is like 10 hours, and your save will carry over. So if you do like it, you can, yeah, there you go.
I think that's
a tip for you all.
That's a seal of being confident in their game. That is, isn't it? 10-hour demo.
Yes. Really enjoy playing it, so I recommend everyone else gets on that as well.
In terms of, sorry, go on, Andrew.
No, sorry, I was going to say nice. Yeah, something I'm definitely going to have a go of.
Yeah, so yeah, 10 hours. I don't feel like I play a lot of games for that amount at the minute, so definitely give that a try. Mike.
Yes.
Modern games, then maybe something Switch related. What have you been playing?
Yeah, so I picked up a Switch again. I had a Switch on launch. I think I had launch, and I picked up a Switch again because I sold mine to my nephew actually. Mainly because I for 3 games. It was for Witcher 3, because even though it's going to be probably quite downgraded, the fact of playing Witcher 3 in handheld mode would be awesome. I only have the Switch to play in handheld mode. I don't have any need to plug it into the TV. I've got a PS4 and an Xbox One. Second reason was for Mario & Sonic Olympic Games, because I'm a massive Olympic Games fan, as you know, Kev.
Yep.
And the third reason is for Civilization 6, because my PC is terrible. And I love Civilization games. I've probably sunk more hours into those games than anything, even Football Manager. I've been playing Civ 6, and it's fantastic. And I think that's really, for me, seeing the Switch be able to port games like that. I know Football Manager's on there as well, and other games like that. Games that are quite deep, strategy games, due to the touchscreen, it's quite easy as well. I'm really enjoying those kind of games on it. So I also been playing Golf Story, which is a fantastic game.
A great game,
yeah.
Fantastic game.
I bought Civilization 6 purely because of your influence, but I've been too shell-shocked to play it due to the aforementioned being ID'd whilst buying it. And then later discovering it's a 12. So... yeah, not my finest moment, but I'm going to take that as a compliment.
It's a really good game. Just to plug the game very, very quickly, it's possibly the only strategy game I've ever played where they've nailed the controls. So even though there are touchscreen bits as well, I haven't actually needed to use them because it's so well integrated. And literally within a few minutes, I was able to just completely go around the game. which is unheard of in strategy games. I know some games, Halo Wars did it quite well. I know Manage Touch has sort of done quite well with it, although a lot of that's touch-based. But the way they've integrated the controls is really impressive.
So yeah, I'm going to get round to that. I've been playing Into the Breach again on the Switch, which is another strategy title that I love, which is very addictive. And then finally, we'll just wrap up. Lewis, more modern stuff or non-Dreamcast stuff might be a more accurate way of describing this. What have you been doing?
As I said, Dragon Quest XI. I've sunk over 100 hours into it. I'm very passionate about this game. Everyone should go get the Switch version. It's I don't know, I've never actually played Dragon Quest before, but I picked this up because it just looked, the graphics are awesome. You know, it looks like, you know, 3D Dragon Ball, even to the point where the guy who did the art for Dragon Ball does the art for Dragon Quest. And I don't know, it's very traditional in its sort of RPG mechanics, but the story is so rich and massive. Like every town you go to, there's like a big almost episode of things that happen, and like you find yourself hooked, and then you're like, oh, that bit's done now, it's on to the next bit, and then at the next town something else happens and you're just completely hooked. And one thing I think I tweeted out was that every time I think I've finished the game, there's like, you know, 40 more hours of gameplay. So yeah, if you really want something to sink time into, Dragon Quest XI, it's fantastic. I'm equal parts intimidated and intrigued by that. I'm
not put off by the fact that you said it was very traditional and very similar to Dragon Ball, which is two things I wouldn't say I dislike, but I'm kind of middle of the road on with my knowledge about. So that's good to hear. Personally, I've been playing very little Dreamcast. I've been having a kind of whirlwind summer of traveling around, being on holiday, so I've had the Switch with me a lot. Something I just want to touch on that I know Mike is a fan of this game. I've been playing Micro Machines 2 Tournament. Tournament Turbo? What's it called? It's Tournament Turbo Tournament.
It's Micro Machines 2. I don't know what. I can't remember what the subtitle is.
I'm going to imagine, and I will tweet out a photo of these. I'm going to imagine that these were standard, but I bought this cart ages and ages ago, and I've played it before, but I'd never really paid attention to what was inside it. I've got these in my hand. I'm going to
invites. Is it invites?
Invites, yeah. They've got party invites.
I used them as a kid.
It's got just before we move, Andrew, were you a Mega Drive man?
No, before the Dreamcast, I was Nintendo all the way. So I was NES and SNES, unfortunately.
Right. So no invite for you then.
No, I can understand that.
It's got like what you'd imagine like a kid's invite you'd get when you're a kid. So there's a blank space. So you put like your name, Kev invites Mike 2A, and then it's got like big Micro Machines 2 Turbo Tournament and then it's got date for your venue and your time. Then it's got like a little bit, please telephone, and then a block for your number and say you'll come. Race up to 8 friends in party mode, up to 16 people can play in a tournament. And then it's got like, don't forget to bring a Mega Drive joypad. I just thought that was absolutely brilliant, and it looks like they're all still in the box.
You should use them.
I don't know if I know enough people to even get to 8, let alone 16.
Just invite anybody. Just like give them to guys in the street. They'll turn up because it's Mega Drive.
We've got some new neighbours that moved in about 2 months ago. I've not really spoken to them yet, other than to say like hello when we see them outside. I might jump around with a few of them. It's got a big Mega Drive tournament in a way.
It's a perfect.
You might
game.
never see them again.
Yeah.
The game got a 99% for playability in Mean Machines. I always remember that review. As far as I'm concerned, it's a very friendly gesture to your new neighbours. Come along and play with my cars.
They've got 97% from Games Master on the box. So yeah, utterly brilliant game. So that's kind of the most kind of Sega thing that I've been playing. I also had a little dabble on. Again, I tweeted this out for anyone who followed me. I bought a 50 to 60 hertz modded Mega Drive off of eBay that I will describe that literally no one else wanted. So I follow this seller who does these mods, puts the switch on, changes the LED, and he's got this one that's got like the most 90s stickers all over it. So one of them says like Sozard, One of them's got like bodybuilders pump harder, which is over the 16-bit bit, and then it looks like a kind of cartoon vector drawing of Arnold Schwarzenegger's arm, and they're just all over the machine. And I've seen his machines go for up to 45 quid at sometimes. I got this one for £7 with postage. So when I say no one else wanted it, I literally mean no one else wanted it.
I will say what I said on Twitter. It is radical, dude.
It is radical. He even put, normally he puts blue LEDs in them, but he's put like a really garish orange LED in this just to make it even uglier. So I've been messing around on that today now that I'm finally back. And then the kind of last major purchase of mine is I bought an Amiga 500. So I originally thought the disk drive was dead on it. Me and Mike have been kind of talking about these in our kind of little private nerd chat that we have away from the podcast. But I bought an RGB SCART cable for that, and finally got the drive going. Now it's had a bit of a clean, and I bought some more discs, and that looks phenomenal. And it's just probably very similar to why we all retro game. Hearing that noise that I used to hear when I was playing Amiga when I was kind of like 13, 14 was just kind of like a priceless feeling. So enough about my desperate attempts to rekindle my childhood. We're going to move on to the next part of the show, which, again, a good host would have done this before, but this I've called the introduction to Andrew, who we've been speaking to for 25 minutes now. So for those of you who aren't aware, Andrew, jump in once I start to get any inaccuracies or anything wrong here. You are the author of, it's called Year One Dreamcast, is that right?
Other way around, Dreamcast Year One.
Dreamcast Year One, which is a series of books that look at different consoles. Is that part also right?
Yes, kind of. So the first book was by a gentleman called Sandeep Rai, and he did PlayStation Vita Year One. And I kind of was a backer of that on Kickstarter and realized how similar the Vita and the Dreamcast were in terms of, not being kind of appreciated at the time and not doing so well commercially. And I kind of asked him if I could use his format to write a book about the Dreamcast. And so it kind of became a bit of a series. I don't think it was ever intended to be that way, but now it is. So, yeah.
Brilliant. So I mentioned we were going to get around to this eventually. Could you kind of talk us through what's your kind of first experience or your formative experience with the Dreamcast that's kind of led to you writing this book?
So I have trying to think if I'd start. Such a big thing. So for me, my kind of introduction to the Dreamcast was through Resident Evil. And I am a huge Resident Evil fan. My stepsister had a PlayStation 1 and brought it over one day with a copy of Resident Evil 1, the first game. And from that moment on, as soon as I kind of played that game, I was kind of huddled in my room playing the first Resident Evil, and I realized that it was something special. And from then, I've kind of followed the series. So I've obviously played 1, 2, 3. And then the next thing I knew, the next game in the series wasn't going to be on the PlayStation. They were going to be releasing it on the Dreamcast, which I'd never heard of. I kind of, I think I was vaguely aware of it through gaming magazines and things like that. But I not really paid any attention to it because I'd never been that much of a Sega person. I'd had a NES and a SNES, and then I kind of moved to PlayStation. I skipped over the N64. And when I realized that the next kind of title in the Resident Evil series was going to be on the Dreamcast, I suddenly became interested, and I was like, I have to get one. And it kind of coincided that I think Resident Evil Code Veronica came out a couple of months before my 16th birthday, which was, I think it came out in May 2000. And my birthday was in August. So I basically pestered my mum for months and months before my birthday, letting her know that the only thing I wanted, the only thing was a Dreamcast, so that I could play Resident Evil. And she relented, and I think it was I think it was April. She went and bought a kind of a second-hand Dreamcast, because by that point in 2000 it had been out for nearly a year. So we bought one. It kind of came with a copy of Crazy Taxi and a copy of Power Stone, and then she later on bought the copy of Code Veronica when that came out. And I just spent. I managed to convince her many times before my birthday to let me get it out of the wardrobe. Well, I'm not sure why she let me. I think it was under the guise of I need to test it to make sure it's okay because it's secondhand. And I kind of played Crazy Taxi and Power Stone before I'd even played Code Veronica, and I was absolutely hooked. I hadn't played anything quite like them. I hadn't played anything like the Dreamcast before ever. And so from that moment on, and once Code Veronica came out and I got that for my birthday, I was absolutely kind of, yeah, that was it. And at that point, I knew I liked it that much that I wanted to talk to other people about it. And this was back, obviously, in the times with chat rooms and forums. So I managed to find other like-minded people at the time who were into the Dreamcast. And one of them was writing a fan site called dreamcastsource.co.uk, which is still up. Hasn't been updated since 2001, but it's still there, kind of a testament to the old days. And I wrote for that for a good year or so before everything went downhill, before the discontinuation. And ever since then, it's just remained my favorite console of all time. And that's kind of, that's how I got started with the Dreamcast, I guess.
That is, I don't know if any of the other guys have got any questions they want to throw in, but that's a tremendous lineup of kind of first initial games to get hold of.
I was going to say it's quite a unique in Code Veronica. Like everyone's like, oh, I saw Sonic Adventure or Power Stone or Soul Calibur, but like that's the first story I've heard where someone was like, I want a Dreamcast to play Code Veronica. Not dissing Code Veronica, of course, but yeah, just quite a unique story.
I can't remember where it was, but I answered a poll recently that was about which Resident Evil game would you next want to get the kind of reboot remastering series, and Code Veronica was my answer for that. I think it's probably my absolute favorite Resident Evil game, maybe tied with 4 because I absolutely love 4, but I think some of that is purely just because of that Dreamcast fondness. I remember playing that as a student. I bought my copy from ePlay, which I've spoken about before, from Cheltenham for about £23, and just to play that rather than eat, because I'd spent all my money on video games. But that's fantastic. I love it. We'll have to get a link to. Is it called Dreamcast Source? Did you say?
Yeah, Dreamcastsource.co.uk.
We'll have to get a link to that. I absolutely love, like for example, a lot of IGN's Dreamcast reviews are still up. I absolutely love reading stuff that's like a review that went up in like 99 or 2000, or like someone's like forum post, like you said, from like 2004, and it's weird how you can find so many posts about like the reset issue before anyone really knew it was something you could fix in about 7 minutes. That type of stuff. I feel for me, that kind of like early part of the internet, discussing games with other people, having been at a school where like maybe there was one other kid as passionate as you were about video games and everyone else just kind of had a console that they sometimes played on. That's one of the kind of special things that I kind of feel like I'm always trying to chase still, like via Twitter and sites like that. After you try, sorry, Mike, have you got any questions you want to throw in there?
No, I'm fine. I was just coughing.
All right. After those initial 3 games, do you remember anything else that you picked up, or that you've since picked up that you've got fond memories of? Or
there's I mean, one of the reasons I'm writing the book is that there's just so many games that I've got fond memories of. It's that there's not many consoles that have a huge good game to bad game ratio. Like there's to me there seems to be more good games on the Dreamcast than there are bad games. I mean, there are bad games, don't get me wrong, there are some awful games, but that's the same for any console. But for me, there were games like Jet Set Radio. Space Channel 5 is probably now it's a short game, it can be done in about an hour, but it's the game that I've completed the most times of any game ever. I've completed that game, I think it was 19 times, because it was so short and because I enjoyed it so much. I just kept going back, and it's experiences like that. They're kind of short and sweet experiences, but they kind of stick with you. And then even the longer experience, I mean, Skies of Arcadia is you mentioned earlier, I think, Lewis, when you were talking about Dragon Quest, and it is one of the best JRPGs that I think I've ever played, and I'm still surprised that nobody has bothered to port it or remaster it for modern consoles, because it was just so good. And then obviously, I think it goes without saying. I mean, there's probably people who aren't so keen on Shenmue. I'm not sure who those people are, but that those two games were kind of quite revelatory for me in terms of what a game could be, and especially Shenmue 2 coming towards the end of the Dreamcast life, and kind of getting to wrap up. I say wrap up the story. We never got to do that, and we still won't, because Shenmue 3 won't wrap up the story, as far as I know. But getting to get that kind of slight closure of that final walk in China, that was, that's something I've never experienced in a game before, and I don't think I've experienced something quite like that in a game since. Right. So it's experiences like that, and then that's not even to mention things like Phantasy Star Online and Choo Choo Rocket, and being able to play online with people for the first time outside of PC gaming. That was, there's just so many experiences like that, and I think those experiences are what draw people to the Dreamcast anyway. That all the people who are Dreamcast fans now, even if they came to it later on, it's those experiences that you can't find, I don't think, on any other console.
I think I've made a note to mention this, and then I've gone a bit sketchy of the details, but the Shenmue discovery recently of the kind of extra hidden scene that no one had either unearthed or no one had made.
When Nozomi fights with you.
Yes, And who, Mike? Do you remember who's discovered this? Because I remember I became aware of this via your retweet or your comment on this article.
I'm not sure. No, I know James Rayner posted it on the Shenmue 500K site, but I don't think it was him who found it. I'm not sure who.
I think I saw it on Phantom Riverstone. It seemed there was kind of a more in-depth thing on there. Right.
So again, we might put a link in the notes for those who might not be aware of this, but it's in essence, it's I always forget the name of it. It's the two bozos that are always walking around causing trouble, dressed in their demon. They look like a kind of they're like fanboys of like Westlife or someone like that. But there's like a fight where you fight them to do with the cat that you're raising with Nozomi and Ryu, and it's just the idea that someone's probably seen that before or unlocked that before, but like Andrew said, it's kind of in that era, that formative era before like games capture or anything like that. So it's like the fact that has only just kind of been unearthed now is making me think, what kind of, is there anything else in there that people haven't unlocked or haven't seen or haven't been made popular or people aren't aware of? Because I'm still playing through the collection on Xbox very slowly. And I feel like my playthrough this time is very different to the playthrough I did at the time, which I think is, I know some people say the game can be a bit kind of stale now, but if you're like us and like our audience and you've got those real fond memories, I'm immensely enjoying that playthrough, to the extent that talking about it now is making me just want to hang up and go and fire it up. But I think
Shenmue is one of the main reasons why the Dreamcast is so beloved. I think, although I know arcade gaming was also one of the big draws of Dreamcast, but I think Shenmue is a game which is so unique in the fact that it's I think it's the only game, I think I said this when we did our top 200 a couple of years ago, it's the only game which people really seem to have an emotional attachment to. I know people have an emotional attachment to other games as well. The Witcher 3 is another great story-driven game, but with Shenmue, it's so unique, and all of the downfalls. You get all these people who say, "Oh, Shenmue's slow, or the controls are awful and stuff." I don't think they really understand why it's such a revelatory experience for people. The amount of people on the Shenmue groups on Facebook, on Twitter, who have literally based their careers and their lives to an extent on what they first encountered in Shenmue. People who've lived in Japan because of the fact that they've played Shenmue. People live in China because of the fact of Shenmue. People who've learned Japanese because of Shenmue. We don't talk about Shenmue a huge amount on the podcast, I think, because we think everyone's going to know about Shenmue. But I think it really is an incredibly emotionally attached game for a lot of people. And I think with Shenmue 3 coming out, I think the Dreamcast will only become more and more popular because the people will actually go back yet again to other games they played in Dreamcast at the same time, all sort of wrapped up in the same sort of memories. I know with me, I actually played Shenmue for the first time ever a couple of years after I was into Dreamcast. So sort of 2003. I was actually living with a girlfriend at the time, and we didn't have much money. There was nothing else to do. And we actually played through Shenmue for a couple of weeks, and it was really enveloping experience. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I don't think I've ever had that experience. No, Andrew said he hadn't either, but I've never had an experience like that with a game since.
Yeah, if I can just fire in here, I think for me as well, I got my Dreamcast again around say like 2010, 11, because I'd played Power Stone and stuff like this as a kid. My Shenmue experience when I went around my friend's house as a kid was, what's this game? Oh, it's Shenmue. Cool, let's play Power Stone now. That was my whole experience of the game. So later on, everyone's like, Shenmue's this great game. So I played it, and I just remember that moment where you walk out of the the gates of Ryu's home, and like that kind of eerie music that plays, and it's just like, I don't know, it's like it gives me shivers whenever I revisit it. And my friend recently has been playing the remaster, and me and him have been like, because he's really enjoyed it. I get a lot of people who, it seems like they like the idea of Shenmue, like, oh, it's really cool, it inspired this, it's very, revolutionary for its time. But this friend of mine who's a big Yakuza fan, like, has really gotten into it. He's like, this is a really great game. Like, he seems to see past all of its, flaws. And I've just had a real great time basically explaining to him how to get all of, like, the secret scenes with Nozomi, and although where you have to get it on a certain date, and like, you have to stand at the phone on this day at this time, and it'll ring, and then you'll go meet her and stuff like this. Because I'm saying, like, those scenes to me are fundamental to the game. It seems like it's not a full story unless you've seen the scenes with Ryo and Nozomi. So, and I don't know if games these days, there probably is some, but maybe almost a lot of games are more linear. And I love the way that you can just kind of stumble across something. Going back to what Kev was saying about there may be things we haven't even discovered about this game. Like, there's just the fact that, oh, if you do this on this time, most people might have missed it. You'll see this scene. That's just like really awesome to me. And I think that's something quite unique about Shenmue.
I think it's quite interesting as well. You mentioned about the fact when you walk out of the gates for the first time. I think that is a moment where there's very few games have that sort of moment where suddenly the game sort of just wows you. I know I've probably only had it twice. I probably had it with Oblivion as well. When you first come out of the sewers in Oblivion, and you sort of have the open world, that sort of wowed me. And I think Zelda Ocarina of Time, the same thing, isn't it? When you first go into the actual world. I'm not a big Ocarina of Time fan, but games like that, I think those wow moments in Shenmue, there's quite a few of them where you thought, I don't know about you guys and about other people, but when I first played Shenmue, I genuinely thought it would be like Resident Evil, where you'd have sort of like, you'd walk and then it would cut again to the next bit. Because I didn't really look at previews, and there wasn't lots of videos playing at the time, so you only saw from screenshots. I didn't really see what was going on. And so that first, when you walk around the town for the first time, or when you first encounter Santa on the street, or the first time where you drive the forklift. And the thing is, people who don't get Shenmue always say things like, "Oh, it's boring. You've got to do. Why would you want to? Yeah. Why would you want to? Why would you want to walk everywhere? Or why would you want to, do a job in a game?" But I think they're forgetting the fact that it's almost like the ultimate role-playing game, where it's the only game where you fully envelop yourself in the world of a character. Every game since has not really been that fully enveloping. Even like the big RPGs from Bethesda and stuff, Skyrim and Oblivion, which I love, it's still not literally you have to go to work at this time. You have to go to bed at this time. It's just it's a game which always brings out passions in people, which I think is, no matter what you think of Shenmue, you have to respect the fact that it's one of the few games I've ever encountered which really does give passion to people.
Yeah, I think there's something, for me, it's about the normality of it. The fact that it's not a game where you're you're a wizard or there's dragons, or it's completely normal. Sure, it's set in the past, but it's stuff that's happened. The weather, it was the actual weather from that time. It's something that's actually happened to a degree. It's realistic, and it kind of, I think the emotional aspect of it is that you can relate to it much more as a person, because these are ordinary things. These are relationships that you're building with regular people. It's, you're walking down a regular street. It might be in some far off corner of the world that you've never been to before, but there's still that element that you can relate to it, and the story then that builds around it. It's I don't know, there's something, everybody has I say everybody, most people have a very mundane life. They go to work, they do all the normal stuff, and Shenmue kind of repeats that, but then on top of it, it puts on the layer of revenge drama, which you wouldn't get in your regular life. So you're doing all these things you do in your normal life, but then it's heightened ridiculously by giving you this storyline to follow and these characters to meet and to get emotionally involved with. So it's almost like you're living your life, but it's more interesting, is how I'd put it.
I just want to add, I know we're probably gone on about Shenmue for ages, but you mentioned the walk at the end of Shenmue 2, Andrew. That to me, I thought that like playing Shenmue, when, like I said, when you first walk out and I thought I was wowed then, but that bit at the end of Shenmue 2 is just probably one of my absolute favorite scenes from any game ever. Like, I can't even think of a game that has something that's as memorable to me as that. And in a way, the sort of where you're talking to Shenhua about like the different, as you're talking about, her town, and like it gives you these dialogue options. In a way, it's probably like inspired quite a lot of, these modern, I know a lot of people sort of trash and call them walking simulators, but games like, Life is Strange and, maybe the Telltale games and things like that, like those kind of more story-driven games. I feel like Heavy Rain, those kind of things. I wouldn't be surprised if someone said, them scenes from Shenmue 2 have heavily inspired those kind of games.
I think it's a perfect analogy for the Dreamcast as well, because I think everyone, Yu Suzuki is a fantastic genius in gaming, but before Shenmue, he was known for arcade games, and I think if you look at a Dreamcast, Sega arcade to the future of gaming. I really do think Shenmue was a genuine, it was a Doom-like game where it genuinely shifted the patterns of what games would be. I know the Grand Theft Auto gets a lot of the applause for that with GTA 3, but actually I think Shenmue is the one which genuinely shifted how games can be looked upon. It's quite a legacy, the game, I think.
Yeah, just to try and some great talk there, that was loving. Just to try and bridge us back. Andrew, you're obviously talking about your Kickstarter. If you could, how much kind of stress and work goes into managing a Kickstarter, which is hopefully going to seamlessly segue into our next topic? So no pressure, Andrew.
No pressure at all. No, a lot of stress goes into it. I mean, I'm kind of like a habitual Kickstarter user. I've kickstarted so many things. I think it's over 150 at this point, and I think it's just a fantastic platform. But I'd never ran one myself, and I figured, I've kind of backed quite a lot. I know what goes into it. I know what to do and what not to do. But then you actually do it, and there's not only is there the build up to it where you're having to put things together, you're having to make sure everything is works in terms of finances and in terms of all of the information that you're going to give out, and then you've got to actually prepare to run it. And it was a month long, and it was I wouldn't say it's the most stressful month of my life, because I'm sure I've had more stressful, but it was one of those where I could not take my eyes off the computer. I was constantly, I work from home, so I'd be working and I'd have the Kickstarter on my other screen just to kind of keep an eye on it. It was an obsession. For a month, it was an obsession. And it's watching the numbers tick up, and it's doing social media. I'm terrible at social media. I've kind of got better at Twitter since then, but I'm awful at social media. And it was trying to get all those things, all those pieces into play, talking to people who are interested, getting the word out there, and doing it all on your own. It's difficult and stressful, and it was an obsession. And I was going to say I'm not sure I'd do it again in a hurry, but I probably will. But I think I'll probably be less obsessed about it. I'll just let it run its course. I'll do all the necessary and let it run its course. But yeah, obsessed is probably the word I would use to describe doing a Kickstarter.
That's sorry. Go on, Lewis.
I was going to say one question before we move on to Kickstarter related things. Were there any books that actually inspired your own, or was it kind of the one, other than the one obviously that's in the same series, or were there any other kind of compendiums of gaming things that inspired you?
One thing, and this isn't me kind of knowing that Mike's here, is not me kind of brown nosing.
I'll give you the $5 afterwards, Andrew.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, great. I do have
to get another copy of Spirit of Speed with that.
But yeah, I do have the Ultimate Collector's Guide. It's obviously a completely different book from mine, but the fact that somebody had put that much effort into kind of cataloguing the Dreamcast and its games, that was definitely something that inspired me. And yeah, I think that and Sandeep's book for sure. In terms of, to be honest, I don't have many other gaming books as such. The only ones I do have now are the read-only memory books, the Mega Drive book, and obviously I've got their Dreamcast book is coming out in November, so I've got that one. I kickstarted that because how could I not? So yeah, but other than that, I think those are the only kind of game-related books that, apart from game guides, that I've really ever had. So those are the only ones that I guess inspired me in that regard.
Love a game guide. It's really interesting to hear that kind of point of view from you, the Kickstartee, or whatever the terminology would be for that, rather than being on the other side of it, like you said. Do you get any kind of guidance from Kickstarter at all? Do you know, like if you've got your own YouTube account, they're constantly sending you like these are the good ways of doing analytics. This is how to do search engine optimization. Have you considered it? Is there anything like that from Kickstarter, or are you just left to it?
There's a little bit. They will send you emails, like, they know that you've launched the projects, but it's all very, I mean, it's probably the same with YouTube, but it's all very standard, it's this many days into your campaign. Have you thought about doing this? And obviously they congratulate you when you fund and suggest what to do next. But it's very generic advice. And obviously there's so many different kinds of projects on Kickstarter that their advice won't kind of match what everybody's doing. But, they in terms of the emails they sent, they were there. They're not actually there. It's all automated. So, but it's they did give that advice at several points. Yeah.
Right, and we've kind of been tiptoeing towards this point, but this is going to lead into a kind of topic that's come up frequently on our groups, or people have kind of sometimes contacted us about, to be like, hey guys, do you know anything about this? Just a kind of disclaimer there, we know nothing about anything in general, so just go put that out there now. Saber Riders, Elysian Shadows, and Slave, I believe, are kind of free, and people feel free to jump in and editorial me here, because I've mentioned before, I'm not really into kickstarting video games, but free games that were on Kickstarter that have never made its way to the backers. Is all of that 100% legal so far?
Kickstarter.
Right, so Slave wasn't a Kickstarter.
Slave was a pre-order from Ghost Store.
Right, okay.
So they announced it as part of the 15th anniversary, I think, and they did a big pre-order about it being out for the 15th anniversary itself. I'm pretty sure it's 15th anniversary. It doesn't seem like 5 years ago, but it is. So yes, it was never Kickstarted.
So and we've kind of, even within our group, and we've chatted about this with Andrew before we came on, people are kind of divided on how they feel about this kind of, people have given their money and they've received nothing in return. Now, Saber Riders, no one here had backed. Is that what we said before?
I pre-ordered it on JoshPod when they took over the publishing, but I never did it on Kickstarter.
Right, and myself and Andrew we're in kind of lockstep with this, and the idea that we don't really like to, apologies if I'm putting words in your mouth, Andrew, but we prefer to wait for games to be commercially available rather than kickstarted. Is that your rule with all games, or just the ones that have come up so far?
It really depends on the game. I think if it's something like for the Dreamcast where it's a physical release and it's a lot of money involved, then I will generally wait. If it's like a digital game that's going to set me back $10-15, then I will probably do it up front. That's fine. But it's the cost that's quite prohibitive with some of these things like Elysian Shadows. I think that was quite an expensive game to back. So something like that, yeah, I wouldn't do that on Kickstarter. I don't think I would wait until it's actually out.
And Mike, I'm going to go to you to be bad cop here for this.
Okay.
I'm going to throw you under the bad cop bus.
Okay.
What's your take on this kind of situation that's come up with people asking us about where are these games gone? Where is my money gone?
I think I want to sort of try and speak for half of the Dreamcast Junkyard, because I don't necessarily share, what I'm going to say 100%. But I know some of us, and I know Ross always gets the bad press, but actually he does speak the truth sometimes. I think that it's always good to have a cynical attitude to Kickstarting. I think Andrew won't mind me mentioning the fact that some guys on the Junkyard were actually skeptical about his own Kickstarter, as he knows. I told him. Mm-hmm. I think that's completely healthy. I think that's not a bad thing to do at all. I think it can go too far sometimes, but I think unfortunately with the games, it has been proven more than once that the games just aren't materializing. I think with Slave's a slightly different thing because it wasn't kickstarted, but I've had numerous updates from Andrew to do with the book. I've had numerous updates to do with Shenmue 3. Not a Dreamcast game, I know, but same thing. I've had numerous updates from all the other things I've backed on Kickstarter. And I think that the lack of updates has been a real issue for those three games in particular. I think, although I understand why people want to kickstart stuff, I have no issue with kickstarting generally. I think sometimes you have to take a skeptical look at everything to really see whether these things are going to be produced or not. If companies have got great track records on games, then great. I think Saber Riders, I believe Saber Riders is from a development team who hadn't done anything before. I might be wrong. Elysian Shadows, I know, had some demo stuff but I think there's a lot of talk, and I know that on the group we've had a lot of this chat with people who are defending things. We had the same thing with Henshin Engine, which has come out since FX.
Yeah, which we received no review copy of.
We received no review copy, no. And I think I'll just touch on it very quickly, actually, so people who don't know. We had a bit of an instance with it where it was Ross who had found some information out that he thought was relevant to the fact that the game wasn't necessarily being 100% truthful. Now, whether that's really what was the end case or not, the game has come out fantastically. I've got the game; it's quite a good game actually. But I think that there was almost an element within some elements of the community who didn't want us to do that, or didn't want Ross to have that opinion, and it had to be fully supportive. And if you're not supporting it, you are somehow being detrimental towards the scene. And I think it caused a bit of eruption within Junkyard at the time, because we're not here to just sell stuff for people. We're not here just to say that everything Dreamcast related is great. I think you have to have that other side to it. It's a very difficult one with all those games. I don't know the ins and outs of what happened all those games. I know with Saber Riders there were some real issues, and some of the guys who were brought on board with the game went public with some of the big issues that were behind the scene. But I think it was genuine problems that have sort of got in the way and ended up being bigger than what they realised. I think Elysian Shadows pretty much the same thing, where there was problems.
So just to kind of jump in there's been no updates via Kickstarter or their official site since 2017, which I did research. It was like the one thing I have researched for this show. So so close to 2 years, which my kind of point of view is the only thing I ever really back on Kickstart is board games, because I'm a bit of a board game geek. I at the minute I don't ever end up even opening them or playing them, so I don't know whether they've delivered on all their goals due to time. But I kind of commit to, if I'm giving X product £45, I'm considering that's an investment that is gone. So the best case scenario is that product will turn up, or the worst case scenario is that £45 is gone. I feel like some of the issues come from people who maybe don't take that point of view with them, and I get that's the equivalent of like a AAA modern console game, but I'm always very skeptical of stretch goals for video games in particular. Because it's like, right, if we get to 20 grand, there's going to be this. If we get to 30 grand, we're going to add this in. But it isn't a case of, I don't know. Did you have any stretch goals for your book, Andrew? I can't remember now.
We had a couple, but I don't think it was anything It wasn't anything huge. I think it was adding like a retrospective or something, and I think that was it. It's been ages since the Kickstarter. I've completely forgotten.
Yeah, so it's like the kind of the stuff that I have backed on there that is books or board games. It's always stuff that you can feasibly foresee them. If I've got extra 10 grand, I've got more time to write these pages, or we're going to put in these stickers, or we're going to put in this character, or the board's going to flip over and there's going to be another campaign, a harder campaign on the back. With the video games, with some of their stuff, and the one I always say to people as an example of my point of view on this is Hollow Knight, which is a brilliant game, but their Kickstarter goal was to be able to play as the other character, Wasp or whatever she's called. But when they started to work on that, they realized they needed to change some of the areas because of her powers, and then they realized they needed to change all of the areas, and now it's going to end up as its own standalone 25-hour game. So if a company like that, who's made, I don't know if any guys here have played Hollow Knight, it's no. One of my favorite games of at least the last 5 years, and I'm not normally into that. It's got a beautiful, like, haunting style, great soundtrack, brilliant art, really tight gameplay. If guys who produced what to me is a masterpiece were so far off on what their stretch goals were, I can imagine how hard it is for them. And I'm not having a go at these guys. I've personally lost nothing from these games coming up because, like I said, I don't tend to back stuff in that way. I've spoken before and got a bit of flack about. I'm not really into. I'm into Dreamcast for the nostalgia stuff, for like trying to reclaim my experiences from the day. I'm not necessarily after new experiences, which I appreciate is a bit blinkered, but that's how I am. But I feel bad for those people, but at the same time, that is the platform. It's just, you wouldn't go in Tesco and give them £40 for a game that's coming out or maybe coming out in 4 years. I think people need to realise it's not a pre-order system. Yes, you know, I mean that's one thing. It's not a pre-order system. If you're going to back it, you have to go in with your eyes open to what you're backing. Josh Prod have done a fantastic job of doing games. We know the games are coming. They've confirmed the games are coming. They do pre-orders. You buy them. You get them. That's one way. That's not what Kickstarters are for. Kickstarters are meant to be for people who genuinely would not be able to produce the stuff they want to produce without having the support of the community who will buy the games. And I think a lot of people, I think some of the developers don't necessarily know that. I think some of the developers don't take advantage. That's the wrong word. I don't want anyone sort of contacting me saying I've now disparaged game developers on Kickstarter. But I think some people don't realise that when they're setting their Kickstarter, it doesn't seem to have the right frame of mind what they want to do. And I think some backers don't understand either. Some backers are literally just going in and going, "Oh, I'm definitely going to get this game." That's not what Kickstarter's about. You need to read the T's and C's, really.
I often explain it to people as like, you know, an internet version of Dragon's Den. Yeah. And we're the dragons, but we're not as loaded, and there's more of us. And many of us are idiots that are just desperate for the thing. Not everyone is Levi Roots, you know. Yeah. There's a lot of people on Dragon's Den who went nowhere, you know. And I think the thing is, a lot of people can have a good idea or a good dream, and you know, it looks great on paper, but then when they actually start to manage it, you know, I think if someone said to me, right, you need to manage this, we're going to make a Kickstarter, I don't even know how I could even cope. You know, I guess people can have good ideas, but maybe not be set out to actually, I guess, fulfill them, you know, in a time because that's the thing as well. A lot of the fans who back it, they, you know, we wanted it by this date, but then, you know, it's like, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine to have that situation where people know that it's going to be. I think the problem is that a lot of developers haven't contacted. The contact is the bigger issue. I know I am speaking for Ross at this point as well. I know his biggest issue of all of this is the fact of, if you're going to take the money off people, keep them updated. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to go back to Andrew again. Andrew's updated every couple of weeks. I'm not sure the exact frequency, but lots of information has come to us about the book. So everyone who's backed it is fully invested. We're still fully happy about it. These other guys, some of the other guys on games, don't update for 6-8 months and expect people to all be happy and cheery about the fact they haven't heard about a game they've put money into. We've had a similar sort of thing with Shenmue 3, haven't we? With the sort of fallout from it going on Epic Game Store. I know there's been a bit of
lack of contact. I think originally people thought that they hadn't been told that the game would then be going on to the Epic Games Store. I don't see the issue personally myself, but a lot of that, and I think people just have a real issue with not being kept informed. And how difficult is it to keep someone informed? Even if you have no time to do anything, it only takes 20 minutes to write a short article. There's obviously the couple of Dreamcast games currently in development from Kickstarter. One of them's Intrepid Izzy from CNR Games, and they've been updating every few weeks. They've been giving footage. No one's complaining about that at all.
Is anyone here planning on playing Shenmue 3 on PC? No.
PS4 all the way.
Oh, PS4, yeah.
Well, yeah. So this ties into my point. This generation, I was strictly Xbox One because my achievement points are on there, my friends list are on there. I'm a huge Halo nerd. I was like, I'm not getting a PS4. And then they were like, Shenmue's only going to be on PS4. I was like, okay, fine, I'll just buy one of them. So if you are moaning about the fact that you have to install another downloader, then I just have zero sympathy for you.
But Kev, I think to slightly go against that, I like to rant. I think the problem was never the fact you had to download it as such. The problem, although there is issues with people thinking it's not a great store, but I think the issue was there was no update, and there was no, especially with Shenmue, where everyone's so emotionally attached to it. When people spent thousands of pounds on backing that game.
Ross,
I think they felt, but they felt that they didn't get that. They felt that they feel they're part of the development team.
Not getting this service, yeah.
Exactly. They feel like they're part of the development team. They feel like they're actually, an investor in the game, a backer in the game. And for a decision to be made without them being involved, I think they genuinely thought, well, if they can do this, what next? Are they going to say that we have to pay for this as an extra? I think that was the concern with it. I think I did get quite annoyed, and I did have a bit of a rant on Twitter, and I had to delete my post because I did get quite annoyed with some Shenmue fans sort of saying, if you loved Shenmue, you wouldn't be complaining about this. Well, I understand the emotional bit again, but actually, shouldn't people have the right to sort of complain when they think things are being done incorrectly? Look at how many cons have done through retro gaming, especially on Kickstarter in the last few years. You know what I mean? There's been quite a few people who've been bitten. The whole Spectrum, the portable Spectrum thing, absolute nightmare. Those kind of things have happened. I think people do have to respect both sides. You have to respect the developers to develop the game and produce the game. But also, you have to respect the people who've put the money in and actually have invested their time into the game.
Sorry, go on, Lewis.
I was just going to say with the Epic Games Store thing, I'll keep it short. I think it's just the media fallout of everything, making it sound, so I don't necessarily think people are that angry about it. They're feeling very disgruntled and disappointed, and it just causes this nonsense where everyone's going, oh, they're entitled, and it's like, it's not as bad. It's just people are like, come on, you didn't tell us about this. I don't think people are as seething as it's implied, I'm kind of neither here or there. If Epic gave Shenmue 3 more money, and that helps development, then I'm kind of okay with it. But I'm a PS4 fan, so I guess I'm biased. So yeah.
My kind of concluding point on this will be this to me is definitely going to be like, and I shared this image recently to Chris Scullin, the NES Encyclopedia and the former NVM or whatever it's called, journalist. This is going to be very like the Left 4 Dead 2 scandal, where there's the kind of famous photos of loads of people on Steam had set up the groups, boycott Left 4 Dead 2, and then on the day that came out, when you look down those groups, it literally said, playing Left 4 Dead 2, playing Left 4 Dead 2, playing Left 4 Dead 2. And like 80% of the people who joined the group about boycotting the game because of, and this is the thing, I can't even remember why they were so annoyed with it. Was it always online? I believe was the issue with that. And just when it came round, it was a storm in a teacup.
It's almost like some gamers are sort of like, slightly unhinged.
Yeah, back in the day, I was always writing letters to Rare about releasing more maps for GoldenEye, and swearing at them and calling them all sorts. And it's just like, you'd never have done that, would you? When you didn't have social media, you just accepted what you had. So anyway, I'm sounding like an old grump now. going to take you behind the curtain of the kind of planning of a Dreamcast episode. We're moving from topic 5 to topic 7, which probably says more about my dyslexia because there is no 6. I've just realised.
We haven't done 5. We haven't done 5.
That's what I mean. Yeah, sorry. There we are. This is revealing my dyslexia. Yeah, we haven't done 5. Anyway, I've just put here happier look at Arcade Legends. So we've been talking about Kickstarter. I was worried that it might be a bit negative. I wouldn't say it's negative. It's just not wholly positive. There's my teacher speak coming through. If we just get a quick yes or no, starting, we're going to go Lewis, Mike, Andrew. Have you backed this, Lewis?
No, I haven't. But I will probably pick it up when it's out. I'm a little bit more like you, Kev. I know you said, everyone will probably hate me for this, but I'm a little bit like you. I tend to buy the sort of the original release Dreamcast games, but I'm inclined to play some of the newer ones, but I'm not, as following them as a lot of the other people in the community.
That's Mike. Yes. Yep. I think I could answer that for you. And then Andrew.
Yes, but only for $1.
Only for $1. Yeah, it's coming back to me now. We did discuss this before. Again, and then myself, no, just to round it off. This is looking good. There is a part of me that is wishing that I had backed this. Mike, you've spoken to the guys behind this. That is correct? Yes,
I have. Yeah.
Who did you speak to? I should know that.
The guys from Pixel Heart, which I'm a little bit confused who Pixel Heart are. I think they're sort of Josh Prod, but sort of rebranded. So I spoke to a couple of guys. It's the same guys basically as Josh Prod, I think, from the effect and what it is. So they sort of sent me a playable demo. I think a different one than they released. I'm not sure. They might have released it since as well. Because I was one of the first people to sort of raise on Twitter. Sort of asked them, is it just a mobile port? And a couple of issues that we had, and a couple of issues that have been raised with me. So I did sort of approach them about it. But I still backed it, which I think either shows I'm stupid or that I fully have gone full circle and I think the game's great.
I think their kind of Kickstarter policy of having the demo available for people is superb. So,
yes.
Like I said, I have got some regrets that I haven't backed this, haven't given them my support. I've been stingy. I've not even given them the dollar route that Andrew's done, which is making me look really bad. But like I said, this will be available by their store. One of the things I personally like about this is every time I see footage of it, I feel like I can see update and progress
100%.
in the way that it looks from the last or the early videos, and it's looking like a real love letter to us guys, as Sega heads, as Sega fans that are out there. So I'm really, really excited about this. Anyone else want to throw in some thoughts on this?
I think it's quite exciting because as far as Dreamcast homebrew, it tends to be a lot. I mean, unless someone can correct me if there's been one before this, but a lot of the homebrew is 2D. Not to discredit any of that, but it's quite cool to see something like this come from like the community.
What's they did the buggy game, 4x4 Jam. So
4x4 Jam is basically based on a modified engine of that game, mixed with, I believe, some of the bits from a mobile phone game, which was the reason why there was a bit of confusion. But I've played the early demo. I played the demo I was sent afterwards. The game has developed so much since those early days.
And they've got new tracks in, haven't they, from that mobile version, which is what kind of I wouldn't say appeased me is the right terminology, because I wasn't unhappy about that, but I remember seeing that and being impressed. They
need to fix the handling. That's the only thing. If they get the handling done, because it does feel very much like just a sort of flat racing experience at the moment. If they get that done, the game's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Does it handle better or worse at the minute than Touring Car on Sega Saturn?
Does anything handle worse?
Nothing handles worse than Touring
Possibly Car. Hardcore 4x4 on the Saturn was also probably an awful handling game. It's better than Spirit of Speed.
Right. the Dreamcast killer, as it is known now.
Will it have support for the wheel accessory?
I don't know. I don't think it was brought up. I don't remember seeing a Q&A answer regarding it. Maybe we can send them a steering wheel. We've already helped out Xenocrisis and getting their twin stick support on that game.
Yes.
So
if you're listening, I'm going to send you a steering wheel. I don't have one, so it'll have to be one of you guys.
I don't have one either. I don't have the room for a steering wheel.
I got 6. So
there we go. We should have
There you
went straight. That has given me a question to fire back to Andrew. Is there going to be how much peripherals came out in that year one?
It was a number. There was the House of the Dead came with a light gun, obviously. So there was a bundled in light gun. So that was one of the first ones. There was the fishing rod controller. There was when I was researching about that, kind of Sega Bass Fishing was meant to come out much earlier than it did in Europe. I think it was something like November, and it ended up coming out March or April the following year, which was just about in time for the timeline that I'm doing. So yeah, that came out, and then other than that, the steering wheel came out, and I think that was about it. Apart from obviously the ones that had to come with it, which should be the controller, the VMU, the rumble pack. So quite a lot. In fact, I think some of the biggest peripherals came out, apart from stuff like the twin sticks and the maracas, which came much later, but the staples, I suppose, of peripherals, they came out quite early.
When did the arcade stick come out?
Ooh, it was definitely not in the first year, I don't think, at least not in Europe.
Okay.
Excellent. Good mention of the steering wheel in there. We've gone full circle. So staying on Kickstarter, this is where I mentioned that I'd made the mistake before. This is point 7. We're going straight from 5 to 7. I've literally written here, update that the Retrofighters pad is looking great. So showing why I'm not the journalist or the communicator that Tom was. Again, we're going to do the same thing. So I know we've spoken about this before. I have backed this. Lewis, did you back this?
I did.
Mike, you've backed this?
I have.
And Andrew?
I did for $1.
There we go. So it's a good clean sweep though there. The latest update that they've had of this, I think you tweeted this out from the social media accounts, Mike, is like they've got the mold made now, and it looks great to me. I am really excited about getting hold of this and having a play around with it. Just because I feel like people may think I'm an investor on this by how much I've talked about it on the pods. I've had a check to see, because obviously we've got Gamescom going on at the minute, and Retro-Bit are there. There's no news about their Dreamcast pads that I have found yet. I've noticed that they're there. They're at Gamescom in the displays, but they've got loads of Mega Drive and loads of Saturn variations, and they've still only got that one Dreamcast pad. So I don't want to assume that they've got issues or they're having difficulties, but for some reason they're not ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
Other people's.
Oh, sorry.
No, go on.
There looked kind of prototypey to me. It didn't look, anywhere near as far. Obviously the other ones are basically finished. I kind of looked at it and I was like, is that like? it just kind of looked like a model of something. It didn't look like the actual controller.
Yeah, this is the Retro-Bit one. Yeah, from Gamescom. Yeah. Because it's not even on anyone's tweet. It's people. I found that by people tweeting out, "Oh, look at all these Mega Drive pads," and then there was this kind of one lonely Dreamcast pad in the corner, which is probably a very fitting metaphor for the system as a whole. The Retrofighters one though. I know a few people every time it comes up, I see people, and I'm going to do, this is my whiny voice that I imagine negative comments on Twitter are like, but it's, why didn't you put 6 buttons on it? And it's just like, oh, come on, man. If you backed it, well, two sticks, because the console didn't have 2 sticks. That's why there wasn't 2 sticks on it. It's just like, I know I'm a fanboy and I'm really looking forward to this, but the people's criticisms wouldn't have improved or made me more willing to have backed this or paid more for it. I do have some regrets that I only ordered the one. I'm hoping there's going to be different molds coming out or different colors that I could try and grab a few of, because they look really good. I'm just really impressed with that.
Are they doing other Kickstarters for different colors? Did I see that, or have I made that up?
Not Kickstarters. Normally, if it follows the model of their N64 stuff, they kind of push the Kickstarter out, and then they do the different different
Right, okay.
shells. So
I will say, because I know Retrofighters follow us on Twitter, please make your controllers more available in the UK. I've been trying to get the Nintendo 64 one for ages, and I just can't seem to order one for cheap at all. So maybe they've changed this, and I just haven't checked recently. But yeah, I mean, I backed it just to guarantee that I'd get one. But yeah, I've been trying to get hold of the Nintendo 64 one, but I can't seem to find like a good price on one.
Where should they be available in the UK? Where Amazon were doing them for a bit, weren't they? Or was that just Amazon Marketplace that I probably saw them on?
I'm just gonna have a look now, just see if we can, because there's a Retro-Bit one that's just come out that is a bit easier to get hold of. But I quite like the way what they did with the I don't know what it's called now, the Retro Fighters. It has a name, Brawler. That is it, Brawler 64. Yeah, sorry, carry on, guys.
Andrew, N64. Fan of it?
I think I wasn't at the time. Not that I wasn't a fan of it. I just it didn't kind of come up on my radar for some reason. Since I'm kind of a fan of some of the games on it, the Wii U kind of introduced me to quite a lot. The Virtual Console on the Wii U is it's amazing. I kind of wish they'd do that for the Switch. So I've kind of been introduced to stuff like Super Mario 64. Star Fox 64, stuff like that. So yeah, I do appreciate it, but because I don't have one, something like the Retro Fighters controller just probably wouldn't be for me because I have nothing to plug it into. So
plus, I was going to try and go an episode without taking a shot at the N64's visuals, but I'm going to take this time just while Lewis is getting ready to launch in with his info nugget. The N64 is not an easy console to get looking good. Lewis, over to you.
Okay, I take back everything. I'm sorry. $37.99 on Amazon Prime.
You ordered one.
No, but it's the cheapest one is like a transparent red that kind of looks pink. So I'm putting it on the wish list. Yes. Speaking of getting the Nintendo 64 looking good, it's the only console that doesn't work with the OS SC because you have to mod it to be natively RGB, and it's a pain in the ass. And I'm not even sure if the PAL N64 can be modded because I've sort of been trying to look through forums and there's people saying this and that. So if you are a person who owns an RGB PAL N64, please tell me because, yeah, it saved me a headache.
And in exchange for helping Lewis with that information, I promise I will never bring it up again. I do love my N64. It's just I get sad every time I put it on and I realize that it's plugged in via composite because, like Lewis, I just can't get it to run through anything else that makes it look pretty. Even though I did claim I'm not a picture snob. Anyway, that concludes our N64 chat/bashing.
The analog stick is terrible.
The analog stick is terrible. Hopefully Retro Fighters will put one of those analog sticks on the Dreamcast pad and send that to all the people who I see moaning in their comments as punishment to them for being ingrates. Going to come to a conclusion here. I'd just like to thank Andrew for coming on our shows. Really enjoyed having you on. I'm going to say that you've been a kind of internet friend of mine since your book has launched. It's been great to finally get to speak to you in person. I've also learned that we share a birthday, which proves that star signs don't mean anything because I'm considered an annoying gobshite by most people that I meet. And Andrew has been lovely. So that shows that being born on the same day means nothing. Andrew, is there anything that you would like to plug? Projects, different handles, ways people can get in touch with you?
Twitter is @oddman84, and there's also a new Twitter for the new website that I've just launched, which is dreamcastyears.co.uk. It's a bit bare bones at the moment, but the big selling point of it is there is a different Dreamcast related fact for every day of the year. So you can log onto the site any day and you'll get a different fact about the Dreamcast or its games, which you can also share to Twitter and Facebook. So that's my plug, I guess.
I've really been enjoying these. The account that I'm seeing them from, is that just you retweeting them, or is there I'm sure I followed something to do with this.
Yeah, at the moment I'm just retweeting them from the Dreamcast Years Twitter,
Right.
but you can just go onto the website and you can retweet them yourself if you want to as well.
There we are. So it's at Dreamcast Years on Twitter for those. Definitely worth getting hold of that. If you're our audience, you are the audience for that. I'm gonna say, Mike.
Yes.
Give us your plugs and shout outs.
I have on Twitter at @space_turnip. I'm also got a Dreamcast picture Twitter. I think it's at Dreamcast Pics. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. I wouldn't recommend following it.
But this is news to me. That is, I wasn't aware that.
Basically, I bored a lot of people on my Twitter, my personal Twitter account, because I think they were bored with me just like kept constantly putting Dreamcast pictures on there. So I decided to do an entirely new one. I thought like 12 people would follow it. I think I'm 160 people following it at the current time. So I don't know I don't know why that's happened, but there you go. So that's Dreamcast Pics, I believe. Apart from that, no.
It is just to say, it is really. I follow you, and I'm really intrigued by what you post. So I would say it's worth a follow for sure.
Cheers, very much.
And then Lewis, if we get your details, please.
I just want to say, Mike, I follow that account as well and you mentioned what was this game, Fortune something or other?
Cleopatra Fortune.
That's the one. And you mentioned it today, and I was like, I swear an account tweeted that on Twitter, and I never knew that it was you tweeting the whole time.
So basically, I had to
it's somehow, a good account.
I had to justify to my wife somehow of buying all this Dreamcast crap, and I think I just said, yeah, I'm Twitter, like, you know, so everyone will follow my Twitter account, and then like, I sort of just carried on and just posted I've got lots of crap, basically.
I'm loving the stuff of the collector's editions. Like Japan had some really awesome collector's editions.
Oh yeah.
Yes, me. You can find me on Twitter at LewisJFC. At work, I've been learning a lot of phonetics. So that's Juliet, Foxtrot, Charlie. There you go. I think I got that right.
Excellent.
So LewisJFC. I also, other than the Junkyard, I write. I have a sort of a geek culture website called Altmag. That's Altmag, ALTMAG, UK.net. I've not written on there for a while because I write articles and they take about, it takes me about, a couple of weeks to write one article because I'm such a perfectionist. Follow me on Twitter. I am a writer. I have written a novel and I'm trying to get it published, and it contains at least one Shenmue reference.
Cool.
And it's been a very long journey. So a lot of people have seen me tweet about how I'm trying to find a publisher, and it's not that it's a bad book. It's just that they take so long to reply when you send them a pitch. So, fingers crossed. I think you'll enjoy the book when it comes out, for the Shenmue reference at least. Yeah.
Excellent. We are at the DC Junkyard on Twitter. We are the Dreamcast Junkyard on Facebook. If you type in Dreamcast Junkyard, you'll find our thriving community on there. Lots of discussions to join in. Lots to talk about a picture. Best way to get your picture going. Best place to play games. Where can I buy a Dreamcast? Seems to be a popular one because apparently eBay doesn't exist in 9/10 of where our users are from. Of course, I'm just kidding. The blog site is obviously up, the Dreamcast Junkyard. We might have some news on a new domain for that in the future, but for the time being, we're staying put where we are. Last thing I'm going to throw out there for myself. Mike is already part of my audience for this, but I've launched a kind of new side project called Not Football Manager, which is a look at games that aren't the Football Manager game. So Football Manager simulations, stuff like Premier Manager, stuff like FIFA Manager, that type of thing. Current video is up on YouTube under my account name, Big Mean Bunny UK, which is my kind of online pseudonym. I've managed to accrue 21 views. So one of them is Mike, and 20 of them are other random people, because I've not told anyone in my personal life about that, because I don't want them judging me, because they already think I'm weird enough. So if you are into Football Manager games that aren't Football Manager, I have got your niche covered. This is going to be very like my introduction to the Dreamcast Junkyard, which was via my video looking at the track and field / button masher games that I think about 170 people watched. So to those people, you are the world to me. So thank you very much. Say goodbye, Mike.
Goodbye, Mike.
Say goodbye, Lewis.
Goodbye, everybody.
And thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
I want to ask you something. Phew, you sure got nerve. Go on, kiss off, punk.